G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for being here and watching my content. And as always, it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to entertain you here on YouTube. And you are here today because it's Tuesday and it's time to read some news. First up, let's go to South Africa. King Rassie Erasmus has released a public voice message to Nick Mallett on Twitter. Apparently, it was too much to put into 160 characters, so he left like a 2-minute 30 recording to Nick Mallett publicly, defending himself against some of the stuff that Nick has levied against him for basically not doing his job as the director of rugby of South Africa. So yeah, quite big accusations against him, and he's come out and publicly defended himself. So it's interesting with this, some of the stuff that he talks about, because for me, I actually don't know what the director of rugby is supposed to do. I can only guess, but Rassie has given us a little bit of insight of what he does as the director of rugby. So first up, apparently he can't appoint coaches. So I'm guessing this is he's talking about regarding to who gets the job under the Springboks. Obviously, Jackson Inamba, he's basically saying that he did not appoint him as the coach. So yeah, so he come out and stated very clearly, whatever you think is wrong with the Springboks coaching direction, it's not him making the decisions behind the scenes when it comes to the coaching. He also talks about a program that is running behind the scenes, which fast tracks black athletes to who didn't have the opportunities in Super Rugby and the URC to try to get them into a professional arena. He then talks about how the obviously Nick is on TV. They talk about how the Springboks running sideways. He talks about how, you know, ever since coaches in under 15s, they've been teaching players to not run sideways, to run straight, with various results. And these people are obviously working under a budget. He talks about how Nick should go and visit them and see what they are doing to teach the players from not running sideways. And obviously the big accusation that Rassie should stop putting the Springboks in the headlines. And Rassie has firmly took a stance that he will do whatever it takes that he thinks is right to the Springboks. And very, very strong convictions with what he does for the Springboks. And he thinks that Nick should keep his to stay out of his way for what he wants to do when it comes to Springboks. Obviously, Rassie has been banned for a year for criticizing Nick Berry after the Lions tour. And then Rassie was banned, I think, for 2 weeks, or I think it was 2 weeks, for criticizing the referee again in November International Test Series, albeit like sarcastically, but still World Rugby was not happy about that. So yeah, Rassie has to do, he thinks that what he's doing with the referee is right, and and he thinks that Nick should stay out of it, stay out of his way. Next up, Nick obviously criticized Rassie that he has not bringing through any new referees for South African rugby, which is true. Jaco Piper is probably the only one that's left, still gets like occasional appointments in international test matches. And obviously, Myers Jonka is the TMO referee. Outside of those two, there really isn't any South African referees in the international test. I don't think there is, like at least not in high level. Maybe in the URC there will be some, I have no doubt. But yeah, so Rassie did say that, hey, that's something that he's trying to bring through, but it's up to World Rugby to recognize them, to accept them, and he wants, he's sarcastically asking Nick to help him out and try to get World Rugby over. So yeah, some interesting stuff there, and obviously, it is what it is. Rassie Erasmus are very firm on what he believes and he wants to do, and yeah, it is all out there in public. You can go on Twitter and listen to what he said. So anyway, Super Rugby has come out with more law variation to make the game great again. The game used to be good, and now the game is no one watches it because it's a laws issue, because the rules are bad. If the rules are bad, then why don't you just revert it back to the way it was in 2005 when the game was popular, or 2003, right? I just revert it back. What are you changing these laws for? So anyway, so they have basically reduced the the TMO referee's involvement in the game. They have limited the referee to only able to review 2 phases before a try was scored. Also limiting the referee from reviewing like foul play up to 8 minutes of time elapsed, which I still think is quite long. And then, okay, despite they talking about making like less involvement of the referee, making things simpler, they added another red card. Believe it or not, there's now 2 red cards in Super Rugby. There's a 20-minute red card, which I think is great. They should just use that across the board. But they've also added a full red card with what they called deliberate foul play with the referee. So I guess if you went out and punched somebody, you can still get banned for the full duration of the game. But yeah, I mean, there needs to be some more elaboration of what consists of 20-minute red card, what consists of full red card, and it could come down to complete, like, you know, referee's discretion. One team could get a full red card, and the other team could only get a 20-minute red card in the same game. So yeah, who knows? So yeah, we'll see that in a few weeks. Anyway, so Finn Morton, this guy, wrote an article about why the Six Nations is better than the Rugby Championship, basically saying that Northern Hemisphere Rugby is better than Southern Hemisphere. And yeah, that's jokes. That's the joke of the week for you guys. Anybody laughing? Anyway, Rugby Six Nations, Ireland versus France. Yeah, Ireland has finally solidified themselves as the #1 team in the world, with Johnny tearing up before the game and finally played against France after 2 years absent in this exact match, 2 years in a row. Yeah, Ireland has really broke the French this game. Took them about 65, 70 minutes. I think when Thomas Ramos came off the field, the French kicking game really fell apart, and Ireland really just drilled in the nail in the coffin. And yeah, final score 32-19. But I really did think that the French wasn't applying that pressure inside the Irish half. Was kicking the goal, happy to kick the 3 points a little bit too frequently and not really applying that pressure. 39 kicks to 37 to the teams. Obviously, kicking game is okay unless you're the Springboks. And finally, the Ireland did have a bit of line-out issues. So they had a hooker injured, obviously Dang Sheehan, and then Rob Herring was taken off early as well due to a high shot to him from Uni Antonio, the tight head prop of the French side. With that being said, some news come out of this game. So yeah, obviously there was a lot of talks about after the game why the French lost. Andy Farrell kind of talks about that the French was too happy to run the ball out of their own half. He was surprised to see that, which I did think was true after hearing about it. The French was happy to just, you almost look like they had that confidence to try to break through and score tries, and really just focused on that a bit too much, and really as soon as they got, you know, a penalty, they really didn't like apply further pressure into the Irish half. So a lot of the French play was around the halfway point. With that being said, Andy Farrell was impressed with the Antoine Dupont and, you know, obviously the fitness of the French team. He took the Irish team, you know, pretty much the 65 minutes, like I said, to break the team. And he talks about, you know, Andy Farrell, something that he came out and he talked about with regards to the Irish team. He's really happy about the character the Irish team showed for the game. Really just pressuring the French all the way to the end to finally break them. And he's talked about like the togetherness and the spirit of the team that they strive towards, which yeah, really showed throughout the match. The Irish team was relentless for the whole game. You know, it's not about you know, they're winning and they just kept going until they broke the French, and it was just brutal rugby. It's nothing too fancy, nothing, you know, no soft, you know, options, just brutal rugby, running at you until you breaks, right? Just, you know, brilliant stuff and absolute, you know, just, yeah, physicality and gut and determination, just, you know, mental strength to do that sort of things. Yeah, the French came out and reflected on their beatings, basically saying that the Irish could probably play like this for 2 days. Just they went full on for the whole 80 minutes. The French were, yeah, quite impressed about how much they were suffering, how much pressure they were suffering under the game. Fabian Galtier came out and basically said that they weren't able to capitalize the opportunities that was given to them, and they also probably played the game too much in their own half, and agreed and echoed with what Andy Farrell was talking about after the game as well. Going into this game, obviously, Conor Murray had a bit of family issue. His dad was involved in a car accident. So yeah, apparently he was trying to score a try for his dad, which is why I kind of criticized him a little bit after the match, where I thought he was just trying too hard to score tries and, you know, neglecting a lot of the opportunities I would say out wide. But apparently he was on a mission to score a try for his dad, who was involved in the car accident. So yeah, let's talk about that yellow card. Whitney Antonio was cited for basically a shoulder charge to Rob Herring, the hooker, and Barnesy came out and said, "Absorbing tackle, boys, absorbing tackle," and reduced that down to a yellow card. No, he didn't say absorbing tackle. He said that the initial impact was on the chest and then led to the head, which was a mitigating factor despite Antonio Uni was not bending at all. I thought that was, under the current guidelines, that was incorrect. But I do think that Barnesy has a point. Like, rugby needs to be a bit tougher. Yeah, like, you know, even though the decision was incorrect, I do think that rugby should move towards the way Barnesy envisions the game. And I do think that Barnesy, obviously, there was a lot of criticism levied against him after the game. He actually had a tweet that talks about the process of the red card. And then people were like, "Hey, Barnesy, this didn't age well. You didn't follow your own tweet that you were supposed to follow, right?" But I do think that Barnesy knows exactly what he was doing, and he wanted to set an example, set a precedent on these incidences to make the rugby, to reduce to make rugby a more of a spectacle and not ruined by accidental head collisions and that sort of stuff. Albeit I do think that this was probably very borderline a red card. Even under it's very, very borderline. It's very slim margins to argue this for a bit yellow. It's pretty much a red, I think, under any circumstance. But anyway, I do appreciate Barnesy for his guts to try to make the game a little bit better. I do think that there is a lot of so he gets hammered a lot by people online, but I do think Barnesy, rugby should move more towards the way Barnesy is looking at it. So anyway, the Ireland came out of this game with a bit of injury issues as well. So Ty Byrne obviously came out with a leg injury, so he may not be able to play in 2 weeks' time. And also the Rob Herring is returning from concussion protocols following the high shot. And Johnny Sexton have a little bit of a groin injury again. So he has the ongoing groin injury, I think leg issue for quite a while now. So hopefully he will be able to return sooner than later. Next up, we've got Scotland versus Wales. Another dominant performance for Scotland, and something that the Scottish team has been looking for is consistency. And they found that in a very worn down, I would say very clunky Welsh team, probably the nicest way to put it. But, as good as the, Scottish rugby was, I did think that the Welsh had a better structure than they did than last year, to be really, to the end of last year, to be really frank. The Scottish team was very impressive. Finn Russell was on absolute fire, just brilliant stuff, mind-blowingly entertaining and good. The only thing I think the Scottish team needs to work on is the scrummaging, so there was a bit of a scrum issue. And outside of that, I thought, there's, outside of scrummaging, I think the Scotland definitely has, even, the backline definitely is just looks so good, and I think they can actually, get better as well. So really impressive performance by Scotland. Obviously, the thing about Scotland, as we know, is their game, is the consistency is an issue. So Greg Townsend, immediately after the game, kind of puts out a warning to the team that they need to improve again, not to be complacent about winning, something that Scottish team has been found guilty of the past, where they win a game and they just be like, we've done it, let's just take it easy the next few games, and proceeded to lose. In fact, this is basically what happened against Wales last year after beating England. So they managed to avoid that repeat this year, but still, Greg Townsend needs to keep a hammer down on the players. One thing that kind of was revealed after the game last week was, or I guess last week wasn't after the game, was that Finn Russell's relationship with Gregor Townsend has improved, which we did see like the performance of Finn Russell is a lot fluid, a lot more free on the field, and he did talk about that. He did reveal that his relationship with Townsend was not very good last year, which resulted in them basically not being selected, despite Townsend coming out and saying, no, we're selecting on form. There's no issue between me and Finn. We just basically, yeah, there was, as everybody has expected. And they basically had a chat, in fact, on the phone in November and finally getting themselves on the same page again. That's when Gregor Townsend recalled Finn Russell and bringing him back to the team. And I can tell Finn Russell is like a different player when he came back in November and showed again. And largely the two has talked about how they communicated with each other. And essentially Finn Russell did feel like he was fatigued after 2001, following the Lions tour, and he had like some family issues where he had a new child, and obviously feeling the pressure from his family, and he was not able to perform on the field due to issues like that. And after being open with Gregor Townsend with his issues, they got themselves on the same page, bit more understanding between the two, between the coach and Finn Russell, and basically Townsend is giving Russell more freedom to do what he wants on the field, and we saw some just amazing rugby as a result. And yeah, how that worked out for them. So anyway, next up, Dan Biggar was obviously so anyway, during the match against Scotland, Biggar was there was an incident where Biggar kind of like yelled at Dyer, the winger, the youngster, the rookie, for basically throwing a pretty bad pass to him, and he almost dropped the ball and had it and under pressure to do a clearance kick inside his own 22. So he was visibly yelling at Dyer. There's a lot of people calling for Biggar to apologize to Dyer, but yeah, obviously we don't know what he actually said. He just looked like he was yelling at him really, really angrily. But you know, I don't think he should apologize. It's part of the team, part of the game. And depends what he said. If he said something abusive, then yeah. But if he's just like yelling at him, telling him, to focus, to not do that, to take the kick himself, I think that's okay. But if he's yelling like abuse at him, then he should apologize. So it depends on the context. But just the fact that he was yelling at him angrily in the middle of a heated game, I think it's okay. It needs a bit more context. So yeah, Warren Gatland came out and admitted that the team has still got a lot of issues. He thinks that there's confidence issues amongst the Welsh team, and he thinks that there's also communication issues. So obviously the bigger incident from around the field, so the players are not really sure what's going on, and yeah, just lack a bit of polish. And Gatland thinks that he needs to take the time in the Six Nations to work towards the Rugby World Cup, which I think is really good, because I do have to give credit to Wales. They were really, what do they call it? What do the commentators call it? Ambitious in their attack. So they didn't just take the 3 points when it was available. They were happy to go for the set piece. They know what they wanted to work on, and they worked on it, which was really, really good to see. A lot of teams will just go, let's try to win the game. Let's make the scoreboard closer. Let's try to, do stuff that makes us look, more, better on the scoreboard and not pressure the opposition team. Wales took the opportunities, wasn't able to convert them into points. The scoreboard didn't look good as a result, but they did work on the things, which is the most important part. Work on the things, work on the strategies they wanted to work, which I do commend the Wales from doing so. And that is really important. That is a really good sign for Wales going to the Rugby World Cup, because at least they are trying to make a difference. Finally, England versus Italy. Again, a few things come out of this game. England was really, really good at set piece, I thought. Really dominant for like the first, I guess, 3/4 of the game, maybe first half and a bit, and then yeah, just fell asleep, and then gave Italy a sniff an opportunity to come back at Twickenham before England finally won the game with Arundel try. Yeah, I was impressed with the English, I guess, set piece. I thought the Italian set piece looked decent against the French. The Italian, set piece defense, like more defense, was pretty good against the French the week before. But the English forward pack was just brutal, absolutely brutal in converting those close opportunities into points. And obviously this game also was a thing where where what do you call it? The number 10 spot has finally been shuffled up. So there is a lot of criticism against Bothwick the week before against Scotland, where Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell combination, the Eddie Jones leftover staying, has to be changed. So Bothwick has made the decision and cut Marcus Smith and put him on the bench and put Farrell at 10. I do think Farrell is definitely a better 10 than 12, and put on some actual 12s on the field, which really showed some really nice results, which was what was it? Ollie Lawrence and Henry Sled. I think Lawrence also scored a try as well. But it was a completely different center combination than we've seen in the past. I thought and what was it? I thought maybe Guy Porter could be a try, but he didn't put Guy Porter on, I don't think. But anyway, with that being said, despite the win, England was not, the English pundits obviously never happy. So a lot of these people, toxic pundits, came out, your classic crews like Andy Good came out and said England was predictable and boring, hasn't convinced anyone. I thought that's pretty harsh, because the Italians is not really just a blowover anymore. And I thought the English set piece was clearly better than the Italians. And I thought there were a lot of positives. But people were not happy. It's just the toxic environment that English is. It doesn't matter if you're Eddie Jones. It's just perpetual toxicity in the English media. It is what it is. Bothwick, however, did come out and admit that the English team did have some bad habits with regards to dropping in performance in the second half. I mean, this is not something exclusively to England. Obviously, every team has this issue. We saw Ireland last week dropping their performance against Wales, and we've seen the All Blacks dropping their performance against England last year in November All Blacks are dropping them against England, allowing England to score 3 tries in the final 10 minutes. So it's something that happens to every team, and I think it's a leadership thing on the field that drives the team to keep pushing forward when they're ahead. So every team has this issue. It's a leadership thing, and I think that comes down to maybe your captaincy selections, in my opinion. Even like the All Blacks back in the day when Richie McCaw was the captain, they have times where they were winning, but then there's periods when they drop off. But it's all about finding themselves back into the rhythm as quickly as possible, and that comes to leadership. Like, that's something that Richie McCaw was able to do with the All Blacks really well. So the All Blacks, the periods of the All Blacks where they're slopping off is usually very short, and they can identify the issue and immediately get themselves back on track. It's something that England, I think every team needs to work on, but England glaringly having that problem 2 weeks in a row at the moment. And finally, Kyle Sinclair came off the Welsh match with a facial injury, so he will be in doubt. He will be seeing a specialist for that. And Eddie Jones also came out on his podcast, talked about some of the issues about the England team. So one of the biggest things that he kind of talked about is that he did agree that England is not really a team currently good at anything, and he thinks that the current strength of the English team, which is the set piece and the kicking game, is not good enough to win the Rugby World Cup. And Eddie Jones basically said that he was trying to morph that, set piece and kicking game into something better, something more. But he thinks that's not enough strength to win the Rugby World Cup, essentially, which is really interesting to see, because I thought a good set piece and good kicking game is what you need to win the World Cup, to be honest. Eddie Jones seems to think that there's a bit more to it. Anyway, he's a much better coach than I am, so I would have to agree. I would have to just agree, yeah. Obviously, the All Blacks came out with a massive blunder last week. So, Scott Robertson, the Crusaders head coach, came out last week in the media, on Wednesday, and basically said that his future, he knows where his future resides with the New Zealand Rugby, and it's just up to New Zealand Rugby to make the public announcement. Yeah, you know exactly what that means. I know exactly what that means. Everybody in the world knows exactly what that means. Basically, he's going to take over as the All Black coach. He's pretty confident that he's going to do so. And nobody's happy for him to say this. It's either a media blunder on the side of the All Blacks, or he just did it on purpose. Whatever it is, it's not good. Because now Foster has basically come out and revealed that there's some people talking about Foster's not happy that he's already being replaced before the Rugby World Cup. I mean, what if he wins the Rugby World Cup? It's still like really unfair for him to potentially, have so much like distrust in his ability to take the team to win the World Cup. Already replacing him before the World Cup has gone underway yet. So yeah, Foster reportedly not happy, and it's basically a massive media dumpster fire in New Zealand. So people are saying that Foster now going to use this as an excuse to lose the World Cup, and also it undermines his job. People are coming out and basically said that basically said that this is just unprofessional for New Zealand Rugby to even considering a head coach before the World Cup, let alone basically confirming it behind the scenes privately. So yeah, it's just really poorly handled situation here in New Zealand. Anyway, further news coming out of New Zealand. Dan Colsey has come out and stated that he's going to be retiring at the end of the 2023 season, which is the end of the Rugby World Cup. And he's going to be sorely missed for his back chats, and very entertaining guy to watch and a good player. Finally, Tuipulotu, the brother, Moses Tuipulotu, the brother of the Scottish centre, what's his name? Sione? Anyway, Sione Tuipulotu, I'm just calling him Sione. Sione Tuipulotu, the brother who playing for Scotland at the moment. So the Moses Tuipulotu has confirmed that he wants to play for the Wallabies. We shall see, mate. We shall see. We shall see how long you're going to hang around. But yeah, we shall see. Anyway, guys, that's the news for this week, for last week. Thank you for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on any of the articles in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. We have a week off of Six Nations. And as always, thank you for watching.